So I am living out of my carry-on sized backpack for almost 5 years, and over the last few years I made many mistakes. So today I want to share 6 packing mistakes that I made, and I divided it into 3 physical fails and 3 psychological fails. But what's even more important, because we just don't want to ruminate on the bad things that I did, I'm also going to share what I learned from these things and what I do different now. And at the end, I'm going to share one mistake that I never made. So let's jump right in. And first, let's start with the physical mistakes that I made. And the first mistake is that I bring gear that I did not test properly. And if I think back over the gear that I traveled with over the years, there is one thing that is just burned into my mind, and that was my Tropic Feel shoes. I spent hours researching the perfect travel shoe for my upcoming trip to Brazil, and everything sounded so perfect, and it arrived shortly before my departure. So I basically brought the shoes directly from the package to the airport as my only pair of shoes. And I cannot even tell you how terrible those shoes were for me. They quickly started to smell extremely bad, that it was difficult to stay with them in one hotel room, and this is a problem that I usually don't have. I got blisters. When I was walking uphill, I would slide out of the shoes, and also the seam in the back very quickly started to dissolve. So I ended up throwing them away even before my trip ended, and in the end I traveled home to Austria with my flip-flops, which was not very nice because it was winter here. So let me just tell you, I didn't feel very tropical that day. But if I would have been smart enough to wear those shoes for a while before my departure, I would probably have noticed that those shoes are not for me, and I would have spared me a lot of discomfort and annoyance on that trip. So what do I do different now? And I guess you can already guess it. I'm really trying to avoid to travel with untested gear. I really make an effort to try to use every gear that I want to bring in the combination that I want to bring it with before my departure. So just as an example, before a trip, I try to wear exclusively for a while the clothes that I want to bring. I mean, if it's a different climate, then obviously I would layer them underneath my winter clothes or something. But I want to see how they perform when I wear them on a daily basis. I want to know if they wrinkle, if they smell, if they fall apart, if I feel comfortable wearing them, all those things. And I basically do the same thing now with all my gear that I bring. And I also try to test them under similar conditions that I would have during a trip. So I try living out of my backpack, using only the things that I'm bringing with me, the packing cubes, those things for a while. And if we stay with the example of my clothes, I want to test them under similar conditions. So if I know that I will be hand washing a lot, I will also hand wash all of my clothes at home to see how fast they dry. Because compared to a washing machine, there's just a lot more water left in the clothes, and I don't want to be stuck with clothes that take forever to dry. Mistake number 2 is to bring high maintenance items. There are just some things that take more effort to properly care for them than others. For example, traveling with white shoes, white clothes that show every stain is something that I don't do anymore. Because for me, babysitting my stuff is just not something that I want to do, and for me it's just a waste of my time. Another thing that I don't want to travel with anymore because it's just too high maintenance for me is merino wool t-shirts, apart from the fact that I really don't like to wear them in hot weather. So everything above 30 or 35 degrees is just miserable for me. I did not like it, even though I really tried to be careful with them. They quickly developed holes after just a few weeks of constant wear, and also washing them, that I just cannot wash them in any way I want because most detergent in laundromats is not suitable for them, all those things. So that for me makes merino wool t-shirts a piece of gear that is more high maintenance compared to other fabrics that are just easier to take care of. So what did I learn from this mistake? Well, first off, I think there is no right or wrong in this regard, because we all travel differently. And it depends on what you are willing to deal with on a trip. So everyone has to kind of figure out what works. My main goal now is always that I really don't want to bring a problem with me. So if we stay with the example of clothes, I want clothes that do not stain. I want clothes that are durable. I want clothes that are easy to take care of. And my biggest takeaway was probably that I want to travel with things that serve me and not with things that I have to serve. Mistake number 3. the weight creep. So when it comes to the weight of the things that we bring with us, a few are just obvious. So we all know that travel backpacks can be heavy, but there is some weight that is not that obvious and that then tries to sneak up on me. For me as a pouch addict, it was like a pouch here, an organizer there, and suddenly half of my allowed weight, especially when flying in Europe, we only have 7 kilos, was already used up by my backpack and the organizers and the pouches, and none of my stuff was even there yet. My mistake was that I would worry endlessly about the weight of my backpack, but all the other pouches, organizers, carry cases, I did not really consider. And all those things added up until my bag was just heavier than it needed to be, and it was less comfortable to carry on a daily basis. And also it became kind of a hassle trying to stick to airline limits. So how did I fix this? I mean, even though I kind of believe that light is a feeling and not a certain number on the scale, I became a little bit allergic to dead weight. As you know, I don't like too much organization in my backpack. I like to keep them simple because I prefer to organize my things into my own packing cubes. But if the items that I don't want to organize inside my packing cube or organizer or something don't need too much protection, then really just a thin, lightweight, flimsy bag will work just as well as a heavy, bulkier packing cube or organizer. And for short trips, honestly, even a plastic bag will do the trick. It's just that for me, since I travel usually for longer periods of times, I just want to have something more durable with me. But every gram is kind of a trade-off with my physical comfort when I have to carry those things around, so I became more intentional with my choices. And that helps me to stay stronger, to not buy more pouches that I then have to haul around. For example, I really like the design of the Evergoods Cap 2. I really think this pouch is very beautiful and very clever, and I would not even mind the excessive price tag. But honestly, the weight of 250 grams for an empty pouch is just something that I don't want to travel with. And this is reason enough now for me to just not add it to my gear, whereas in the past I would have been probably the first to buy this thing. Now let's move on to the psychological mistakes that I made. And the first one is that I had a lot of anxiety about just in case items. Often I was packing for my fears and not for the reality that is most realistically going to happen. I regularly came home from a trip and I wondered about all those useless items that I brought with me that during my trip just migrated to the bottom of my backpack and have never been touched. And I carried just in case items to be prepared for every possible scenario because I just kind of thought or assumed that not being prepared was the ultimate travel mistake. So what did I learn from this mistake? Well, I kind of think that over time I learned that I am not packing for a disaster because really 99.9% of the time everything went well. And during the times when things really went bad, like for example during my husband's medical emergency while we were in Brazil, there is no just in case item that would have helped us in this situation. So nowadays I kind of try to define ruthlessly what a just in case item is, and then I just leave it at home. But to be able to do that, I think it's very important to really know what a just in case item is and what is not. Medicine that is a prescription or could become a lifesaver, for example, malaria medicine when I travel to a remote location, is not a just in case item for me, it's a necessity. Even though I really hope that I will not need it. But some other medicines like some headache pills or diarrhea medicine that I know that during my trip I will be able to pick up on every other corner. These things are more just in case items for me, so I just bring a few and then restock as I need it. And if I'm debating with myself if I should bring this thing or not, then I usually try to think if I could make it without this thing, what would happen, or also if I could just, instead of this thing, use something else to do the same function for me. And more often than not, I find that it's actually doable. Maybe it's a little bit less comfortable, or maybe it needs a little bit more time than if I would have the original thing. But at the end of the day, it's doable. And I also ask myself, if I really need it, would I be able to just purchase it or borrow it somewhere on my trip? So by making those mistakes over the years, I think I learned to trust myself more, that I am resourceful enough to deal with things if they happen. So I kind of developed the confidence that I can deal with most things on the road without thinking that I need to carry the solution for my problems with me on my back. Mistake number 5, falling for the marketing traps. So I recently was asked how I do it that I don't fall into all those marketing traps. Because we are bombarded regularly with marketing from all sides on social media, influencers, all those things. And it's really not that I am immune to that, because they got me regularly. In the past, I bought so many useless travel items just because an influencer or marketing said that this thing would be a game changer for my next trip. And I bought the hype of must-have travel gadgets a lot, and then it just ended up being dead weight in my bag. And honestly, I realized a little bit too late that many things just look great in a curated photo on social media, but did not really serve any real-world problem for me as a long-term traveler. So how did I fix this, or what did I learn from this? Well, over the years now, I gained a lot of experience to figure out what works for me and what doesn't, and what I like to travel with. I'm basically living out of my backpack for over 200 weeks now, so I kind of developed a gut feeling if something is worth being there, if it's really worth the space and weight in my bag, or if I bring in something new, if it justifies getting rid of something else that is already working for me. And I feel like someone who is just able to travel for a few weeks every year will take a longer time to get to the same level of experience. So if you feel guilty because it looks like I'm immune to marketing traps, then please don't. It's just that I already made all those mistakes in the past. And over time, I kind of developed an internal skepticism. I really try to prioritize to use what I already own instead of chasing after the next shiny object. And I also try to look for the few honest reviews out there, because I feel that most travel reviews out there are more unboxing videos and not really real-world tests over an extended period of time. And I honestly think that all those brands that are pushing so hard with influencer and online social media marketing, they're really making a mistake, because they are drowning the few honest voices out there in all this noise. And over time, I think I saw some patterns, and I kind of realized that the level of authenticity or real-world testing is very low if the exact same product, game changer product, immediately pops up as highly recommended on 15 channels at once. But to be fair, every once in a while they still get me with all their marketing, but then at least I have something to talk about in my gear update videos. And since I don't do sponsored videos, I have the freedom to talk about how things really were for me and also how they held up over a longer period of time. So this is something that I enjoy doing very much. Mistake number 6, my perfectionism rabbit hole. I spent so much time trying to find the perfect item that would make my next trip so much better. So I spent so much time researching backpacks and pouches and gear and small tiny things that are really not worth that time. So thinking back over the years, I spent weeks trying to find the perfect pouch, and then a few months later I would not even remember if I brought it on this trip or not. Because when I think back to my trips over the last few years, there are so many memories that I made, but I do not remember which gear I brought. Funnily enough, I only remember it when I see some of my old Pack With Me videos. So what did I learn from this? And this is still very much work in progress for me. I stopped trying to obsess over finding the perfect gear. And I always tell myself that perfect doesn't exist and that good enough is now the way to go for me. And I'm trying to be okay with making some sacrifices in not having the perfect product and instead freeing up my time. Because at the end of the day, I find better things to do with my time, especially when traveling. And I really don't need specialized gear for my comfort. I mean, if my durable t-shirt takes 15 minutes longer to dry than a merino wool t-shirt, does it really matter? So I'm kind of trying to make the shift from bringing the best to packing what works. And another thing that I always remind myself, which is another benefit, is that the money that I don't spend on gear is money I can spend on my next trip. So bringing good enough gear allows me to focus on my trip, and that is what stays in my memory at the end of the day. Because I feel like if I cannot even remember if I packed it or not once my trip is over, it was probably not that important in the first place. So those were already my 6 mistakes, and now let's talk about the one mistake that I surprisingly never made. If I think back over the years, there is one thing that I always worried about that never happened. And that is, I was worried that I would make the mistake of not bringing enough gear. I never, not once, thought to myself on a trip or afterwards, man, I wish I would have brought more stuff with me. So with lots of trial and error, I found the perfect amount of gear for me now. And after 200 weeks, I realized that I don't travel to use my gear, I use my gear to travel. So I ideally want gear that disappears in my bag. I want it to be there when I need it, but otherwise it should not be in the way. Because I really want to enjoy my travel and not manage my gear. So I never, not once, thought that I wish I would have brought more stuff. So which mistakes did you make? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, then consider subscribing to my monthly newsletter or to this channel. That would make me very happy. And thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye!